Last week, the Attorney General was here to brief us on some developments regarding some investigations that he was conducting and some efforts he had made to disrupt the activities of cyber criminals. He did promise that he will come back to this platform today to speak to us about the details of some corruption cases involving politically exposed persons that he was looking into. And indeed, he has kept his word. This morning, he is here to brief us on the cases that he indicated. So without wasting any more of your time, I would invite the Honorable Dr. Ayine, who is the Attorney General and Minister for Justice. Honorable Minister, the floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And good morning, Honorable Minister for Government Communications. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, and my fellow countrymen and women, today's press briefing announces the conclusion of 2 sets of investigations by the Economic and Organized Crime Office, the EOCO. The first part will announce the conclusion of investigations into the activities of Wumi Farms Limited, a corporate entity established by Bernard Entwi Boseako, also known as Chairman Wontumi. The second part will announce the conclusion of investigations into the fraudulent activities of Mr. Percival Kofi Akpalo, the founder and leader of the Liberal Party of Ghana, or LPG. Finally, I will provide a brief update on aspects of the oral investigations and prosecutions. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, you will recall that in March this year, the Economic and Organized Crime Office arrested Chairman Wontumi on reasonable suspicion of the commission of a crime. Chairman Wontumi is the sole shareholder, director, and chief executive officer of Wumi Farms Limited. The arrest was pursuant to credible intelligence gathered by the EOCO that the company and its director and CEO, its directors and CEO were involved in a fraudulent transaction in connection with a purported loan facility granted by the Ghana Exim Bank under the Mining Alternative Livelihoods program of the bank. The program was designed by Exim Bank to provide alternative sources of livelihood for the youth in areas of the country affected by the phenomenon of illegal mining or galamsey. In doing so, the Exim Bank intended that the loans under the program would go to companies committed to ensuring the realization of the objectives of the initiative, especially in relation to job creation for young persons in mining communities. In December 2017, Wumi Farms Limited submitted its application for a loan of 18 million Ghana cedis, purportedly to cultivate 100,000 acre farmland and to employ the youth on the farm. At the time that the application was submitted by Wumi Farms Limited, together with a purported board resolution, the company was not yet registered. In other words, it was not in existence. In short, the company did not exist at the time of the loan application by its sole shareholder and director. Investigations established that Wumi Farms Limited was incorporated on December 14, 2017, and issued with a certificate to commence business on the same day. The principal business activities of the company, as stated in its corporate registration documents, are general farming, agribusiness, and agro-processing. The directors of the company are Bernard Entwi Boseako and Thomas Entwi Boseako, with Chairman Wontumi being the sole shareholder of the company and also listed as its company. Thomas Entwi Boseako is believed to be the brother of Bernard Entwi Boseako, domiciled in the United States of America. Prior to the registration of the company, that is Wumi Farms Limited, Chairman Wontumi wrote to Exim Bank that the board of directors of Wumi Farms Limited had met on December 9, 2017, and had resolved to seek a loan facility of 19 million from the bank to support its farm project at Asari Nkwanta in the Ashanti region under the Mining Alternative Livelihoods Initiative. The application letter stated, among others, that the credit facility was meant for a farming venture and that the company had secured 100,000 acres of land for that purpose. On January 16, 2018, based upon the application submitted by Chairman Wontumi, the chief promoter of Wumi Farms, Exim Bank approved a medium-term loan facility of 18,734,260 Ghana cedis, which included a grant component of 6,768,260 Ghana cedis. This offer was accepted via a letter dated January 23, 2018, and Chairman Wontumi, acting as the Chief Executive Officer of Wumi Farms Limited, and Thomas Nchibusueko as Director of Wumi Farms Limited. The offer letter indicated that the approval of the medium-term loan facility was subject to the bank's terms and conditions. The loan offer letter further stated that the loan was secured with 10,000 acres of farmland of Wumi Farms at Asari Nkwanta. The breakdown of the approved 18.7 million loan as per the offer letter was as follows. A. Purchase of agricultural plant and machinery, working capital, and then grant staff costs and consultancy fees. As part of the pre-disbursement conditions of the loan, Wumi Farms Limited was to do the following, among others: execute an equitable mortgage over the land earmarked for the project, submit a valuation report on the land to be used as collateral, execute a lease agreement over the equipment, provide a letter of undertaking from off-takers to make payments in the joint names of Ghana Exim Bank and Wumi Farms Limited, and then finally submit copies of the contract with the National Buffer Stock Company, under which Wumi Farms was to supply the food items to buffer stock. IESO Agribusiness Consult, a company specialized in investment advisory services, consultancy and training and development, was contracted by Exim Bank and assigned to Wumi Farms Limited as a consultant to the project. The key function of IESO Agribusiness Consult was to provide technical assistance to Wumi Farms Limited. On February 14, 2018, IBAN Capital Limited, a company that specializes in financial technology services, cash management services, distribution of custom banking and payment software packages, was also contracted by Exim Bank and assigned to Wumi Farms to provide a platform that will facilitate staff salary payments, customization, integration, POS, terminals, and biometric cards for the farm hands that were to be employed by Wumi Farms Limited. Wumi Farms Limited was to provide IBAN Capital Limited with a database of all workers, from which IBAN Capital Limited was to integrate the workers on a payment platform. IBAN Capital Limited would then receive funds directly from Exim Bank for onward disbursement to workers, to the workers' wallets as salaries and allowances. Ladies and gentlemen, Wumi Farms Limited failed to provide a database of farmers, of farm hands to IBAN Capital, as there were no farmers working on the land, no farm hands working on the land. According to witnesses, Chairman Wontumi, as CEO of Wumi Farms Limited, insisted and put pressure on IBAN Capital and Exim Bank to transfer the 400,000 meant for the workers to Wumi Farms Limited on the basis that the youth who were involved in Galamsey were not used to complex electronic payment systems and wanted to be paid in cash. In order to execute the project, Wumi Farms Limited had submitted a pro forma invoice to Exim Bank for the purchase of farm equipment, including tractors, combine harvesters, corn seeder machines, and Wellington boots. The invoice was submitted on December 15, 2017 as part of the loan application process. Subsequently, Exim Bank demanded proof that the equipment has been purchased. On March 18, 2018, Chairman Wontumi submitted a receipt from a company known as Kasama Enterprise for the purchase of the equipment in the sum of 4 million Ghana cedis. However, and this is where it gets interesting, the equipment purchase as shown on the receipt included bulldozers and excavators. Our investigations established that Chairman Wontumi had approached Kasama Enterprise, an industrial equipment dealer, and obtained an invoice with a promise to return to purchase the said equipment. He never went back to purchase the equipment. Instead, and this is where the criminal enterprise began, he forged the invoice he obtained from Kasama Enterprise by removing the word invoice and replacing it with receipt. This forged receipt was then submitted to Exim Bank as proof that he had purchased the equipment after the disbursement of the loan facility. The owner of Kasama Enterprise confirmed to investigators of the Economic and Organized Crime Office that the only document he issued to Wumi Farms Limited through Chairman Wontumi was a pro forma invoice and not a receipt. He stated that after he issued the invoice, he never heard from Chairman Wontumi again, despite repeated follow-up calls. The forged receipt submitted to Exim Bank suggested that Kasama Enterprise acknowledged receipt of the sum of 4 million Ghana cedis for the purchase of earth-moving machines and farming equipment. The so-called receipt had on it, and ladies and gentlemen of the press, this is what gave him away, 50 days to supply and 1 year guarantee and service. Now, I hope you understand what this means. That when you receive a pro forma invoice, okay, pro forma means that you've taken it with the intention of purchasing. And so they will give you a timeline, okay, within which the supplier will supply you the equipment. And then also, if there are any services or guarantee terms, they will be indicated on the pro forma invoice. But Chairman Wontumi, as I said, took out invoice and replaced it with receipt to deceive Exim Bank that he had actually purchased the equipment. Investigations established that Chairman Wontumi did not purchase any equipment, and as such could not register any equipment in the joint names of Exim Bank and Wumi Farms Limited as per the loan conditions, even though funds were disbursed to him to that effect. That all the equipment he claimed he purchased could not be traced. Investigations established that though Chairman Wontumi submitted the forged receipt to Exim Bank, he stated during interrogation that he purchased second-hand brand new, whatever that means, second-hand brand new equipment, and that the receipts of all the purchases, including the documents on the equipment, were all sent to Exim Bank. However, Exim Bank has confirmed that neither Chairman Wontumi nor Wumi Farms Limited submitted any documents covering the purchase of the required equipment except the forged receipts. In fact, when our investigators went to the ground, they realized that there were some obsolete, decrepit machines on the side, tractors dating back that were manufactured in the 1970s, and that were not functioning, were the ones that had been placed on the farm. So this was definitely a grand scheme designed to defraud Exim Bank. It is clear from our investigation that Chairman Wontumi and his company, Wumi Farms Limited, made fraudulent misrepresentations to Exim Bank with a view to obtaining the loan facility, and in fact did obtain the loan facility. The equipment they represented were to be purchased were never procured. The farming enterprise never materialized, and so no young persons were employed in Asare Nkwanta in the Ashanti region. But more importantly, the company and its director and CEO forged a receipt in order to deceive Exim Bank that they were in compliance with the loan conditions. These are not mere breaches of a contract, but constitute acts of criminality by no means a person than the regional chairman of the then ruling party. In the circumstances and the face of the evidence we have gathered in this investigation, thoroughly conducted by the Economic and Organized Crime Office, we have made the decision to prosecute Wumi Farms and its directors with defrauding by false pretenses, forgery, and causing financial loss to the state in the sum of 24,255,735 Ghana cedis. This figure represents the principal sum plus the interest that has accrued so far. And ladies and gentlemen, by the time we file charges, which will be definitely after the Christmas break when we resume work, it might be that this figure would have increased because the interest on the principal keeps compounding. And so we will get the exact figure of the amount that is involved in this criminal enterprise from the Exim Bank before we file charges in court. Ladies and gentlemen, in the case involving Mr. Percival Akpalu of the Liberal Party of Ghana, the Financial Intelligence Center flagged and filed a suspicious transaction report with First Bank Ghana Limited regarding transactions on an account belonging to Poma Universal Ghana Limited. That is a company owned by the said Kofi Akpalu. Following the STR, that is a suspicious transaction report by the FIC, the Economic and Organized Crime began an investigation into the matter. The investigations revealed that Poma Universal Ghana Limited, a business entity owned entirely by a lady called Ekua Poma, was the legitimate contractor that was awarded a feeder roads contract by Cocoa Board. The contract, which was valued at 29.5 million Ghana cedis, was awarded in December 2020. Although the project commenced and an initial amount was properly deposited into Poma Universal Ghana Limited, subsequent payments raised serious concerns regarding misrepresentation, forgery, and unauthorized handling of the checks. Our investigations revealed that Akpalu secretly incorporated another company, separate and distinct from Poma Universal Ghana Limited, also known as Poma Universal Ghana Limited, but deliberately added H to the Poma. So Poma is P-O-M-A-A, all right, Ghana Limited, which is a company which is owned by Ekua Poma. What the company that he incorporated added H to the Poma, so it became, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the same Poma, Poma Ghana Limited, Universal Ghana Limited. But the difference was just the H at the end of Poma. And so after having done this, between December 2022 and June 2024, Akpalu collected 8 checks issued by Cocoa Board in the name of Poma Universal Ghana Limited. That is the original and authentic Poma, totaling 3.1 million. That is 3,169,432 Ghana cedis and 22 pesos, and deposited them into the account of his own company, that is also Poma Ghana Limited with an H at First Bank Ghana Limited. Again, our investigations confirmed that Ekua Poma was unaware of both the existence of the Poma Ghana Limited, that is the second company, and the diversion of the funds until Cocoa Board contacted her in June 2024 regarding outstanding balances on the contract. She subsequently discovered that Akpalu had collected and misdirected the payments without her consent. Ekua Poma also alleged that Akpalu forged her signature on the Cocoa Board contract using her former name, Mercy Owusu, to secure the agreement without her authorization. First Bank Ghana Limited conducted an internal investigations and corroborated the fraud allegations that we have made, concluding that Akpalu knowingly misrepresented ownership of the checks and deposited them into the wrong account. The bank acknowledged operational failures in detecting the discrepancies between the check payee names and the account numbers. The suspects who have been investigated are Percival Kofi Apalu, Poma Ghana Limited, the Poma with the H, and Delvin Apalu, his wife. That is the spouse of Kofi Apalu. It's fast becoming fashionable to commit crimes with spouses these days. The evidence shows that they engage in various criminal offenses, including stealing, forgery, and money laundering. And they will be charged by my office, again, as I said, upon resumption of work after the Christmas holidays. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the media, further to the update that I provided during my press conference to announce the conclusion of investigations into the buffer stock scandal, my office continues to work with other institutions of state to bring charges in relation to the oral investigation reports submitted by the National Intelligence Bureau. As you would have known by now, pursuant to discussions with the Auditor General, the sums of money involved in the National Service scandal have been disallowed by the Auditor General, and these sums have been surcharged on the public officers who superintended the looting of state resources at the NSA. The notices of disallowance and surcharge have been duly issued and served on the said public officers. After 14 days, if they fail to show cause why the sums of money should not be disallowed and surcharged on them, the money becomes a debt due and owing to the Republic. And I will proceed to take civil action to recover the sums involved. Once a judgment is obtained, it will be executed using the civil procedure mechanisms, including the attachment of properties they own, whether or not these properties were part of the proceeds of crime. I intend to write formally to the Auditor General for confirmation of the notices of disallowance and surcharge. So I want to send a message to all public officers who are superintending the expenditure of state funds, that from now onwards, when you are charged with the offense of causing financial loss to the state, even though with respect to that offense, we don't need to show that you have in any way benefited from the transaction that either intentionally or recklessly caused financial loss to the state. We will begin the process of surcharging all public officers who have caused financial loss to the state. So in addition to the criminal charges which will be filed, we will ask the Auditor General to disallow and surcharge the sums of money lost to the state on the public officers. Now note, ladies and gentlemen of the media, I do not need to prove your guilt in a criminal matter, all right, in order to be able to succeed in the surcharge and disallowance, because that is a civil matter. It's proved on the basis on the balance of probabilities. So if you in any way recklessly or negligently cause financial loss to the state, all right, the surcharge and disallowance will be the mechanism that will use to recover all the money that has been lost to the state from you. And so I'm serving notice to all public officers who are especially spending officers. Those are the ones who authorize spending on behalf of the Republic. That in situations where your conduct results either intentionally or recklessly in financial loss to the state, I will be, in addition to bringing criminal charges, asking the Auditor General to disallow the sums and surcharge those sums on the public officers involved. Now, overall, ladies and gentlemen, the oral investigations are proceeding well, and we continue to beef up initial investigative reports in order to file charges that meet the standards of proof in criminal trials. I want to also make it clear that the Office of the Attorney General depends on a number of state institutions for information that will lead to filing of charges in court. Apart from investigations conducted by the by either the Economic and Organized Crime Office or the National Intelligence Bureau, sometimes we'll need agencies such as the Ghana Revenue Authority, for instance, to confirm if, for instance, tax evasion has taken place before we can go on to file charges. So when these state institutions delay, it also brings, some amount of delay to the filing of charges. So I'm also calling upon all the state institutions that 2026 is going to be a different year. If I make demands on you and you delay, I will take the view that you are complicit in the offense that has been committed, and I'll come after you. So all state institutions that have information that is required to file criminal proceedings should not should not delay in providing that information to my office for purposes of the conduct of prosecutions. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you and to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Attorney General. Now, all those who are present, media men and women, and are willing to ask questions of the Attorney General in respect of the briefing he just gave, or any matter relating to oral, or any matter that falls under his purview, should please line up behind the microphone. So you identify yourself as usual, and then indicate which media house you are representing.
We have become aware of what the president indicated when he said he was going to go after people who have misappropriated or stolen funds that belongs to the state, not just of the past administration, but then the current administration as well. We also know the fight against GhanaWeb has been one of the topmost ones. Just last week, we got wind of an individual, a lawyer, who was written to the Office of the Attorney General requesting the state of investigations regarding officials of your government, notably Joseph Yamin and then one Abanga. One, what is the current progress of investigations? And then what is the interim findings that IOCO has made and submitted to your office? And are there timelines with respect to which you may be filing charges, if any?
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? So please, anybody who has a question should line up so that we do not take too much time in the session.
Good morning. My name is Shadrach Odamejare, Metro TV. My question is, what happens in cases where people make false representations to banks and the banks grants the people the loan? Would the AG also hold those financial institutions accountable? Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Patrick Casport Boidu. Mr. Attorney General, I just want to find out, looking at the funds or the financial statement involved in these two investigations that you have done, I just want to find out whether the parties involved, that is the Wumi and that of Mr. Kofi Apalo, who can come back and rebargain in this case. Thank you very much.
Okay, Honorable Attorney General, you may answer these questions.
Okay.
I understand, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. There are basically three questions. One relates to a letter purported to have been written to my office requesting information on the state of investigations relating to Joseph Yamin and then Abanga. Well, first of all, I haven't received any letter to that effect. If the lawyer has made the letter publicly available, you can forward it to me, and I'm sure most of you have my numbers, so you can forward it to me immediately, and then I will take the requisite action. As far as the investigation is concerned, it is ongoing. Now, you realize that in all the briefings that I make or I do with respect to any matter being investigated by EOCU, we do not announce the results of an investigation until we have come to the conclusion. So you notice from even today's press conference, that I have said I am announcing the conclusion of investigations. All right. The issue of illegal mining is a very complex one. I am not holding brief for the EOCO for any delay in issuing a report in relation to the two that I wrote to them and asked that the investigations be conducted, because we had picked some intelligence about their involvement in illegal mining. So certainly a report will be issued by the EOCO in due course. However, there are a number of persons that were connected, all right, to that, the activities that were alleged to have been undertaken by the two persons that are referred to the EOCO. Okay, so it's not like their investigation is going to be in isolation. There's a whole complex web of people who were involved, so the investigations are still ongoing. Now, the Metro TV gentleman asked the question as to whether if representations are made, misrepresentations are made to banks, and the banks are based upon those misrepresentations grant loans, right, whether the banks themselves can be held accountable. All right. Now, if you do make misrepresentations in your loan documents, all right, which are essentially contractual, and that applies to the Wontumi case, okay, the bank is entitled to take legal action against you for damages for misrepresentation, okay, which is a remedy that is available under the law of contract. All right. So a bank necessarily does not commit an offense by relying on the misrepresented facts to grant a loan. Do you get the explanation? All right. So that is a matter of contract. However, if you look at what happened in the Wontumi case, it's beyond. Okay, so there are two forms of misrepresentation. You can have a fraudulent misrepresentation that borders on criminality, all right, that borders on fraud, okay, that can lead to prosecution for defrauding by false pretenses, all right, and the criminal liability is on the person that made the fraudulent misrepresentation and not the fraudulent representation and not the bank. So you cannot hold the bank to a criminal for criminal accountability in respect of it because the bank relied on the representation. You can say that it was not diligent. They should have conducted their own due diligence in order to be able to act prudently and not give the loan to a person who actually does not intend first to use the loan for the purposes for which it was contracted, and secondly basically wants to defraud the bank. All right. So banks cannot be held, criminally liable because they have relied on those misrepresentations made by persons who are seeking, loan facilities from them. Now, the third question relates to the issue of plea bargaining. And I do not want to walk myself into any trouble. All right. I have stated, and time without number, that the law allows persons who intend to plead guilty and make restitution to do so. So those of you who are, I know some of you are attempting to be lawyers, others are also pocket lawyers. You can, I'm talking about the journalists who sometimes report from the court. You can look at Section 35, all right, of the Courts Act, okay, especially where the criminal conduct affects the interests of the state. The person can pay restitution, plead guilty to the offense, pay restitution, and get a non-custodial sentence. In other words, they don't go to prison, for that. Under the Plea Bargain Act, they can decide that they want to plead to a lesser offense, all right, pay back the monies. In the case of, Chairman Wontumi, in excess of 24 million Ghana cedis, all right, and then they'll be given a suspended or custodial sentence. In the case of Akpalu, the same, can happen. So the plea bargaining statutes allow them to take advantage of that. But I am the Attorney General. I am the prosecutor. I am not defense counsel. So it is not left to me to advise them what to do. In fact, what I want to do is make my case to the court, prove beyond reasonable doubt that they have committed the offenses that I'm charging them with, all right? And if the court finds them guilty, it will sentence them to prison terms for what they have, for the wrongs that they have committed, all right? That is my strategy. But because this is oral, I think sometimes the tendency is to say, talk about recovery, all right? But we can do recovery post, the sentence. If someone has been sentenced, I can still go after their assets. And in the case of Wontumi, one of the things that I forgot to say is that we actually froze his assets, including a 50 million CD account, that belongs to a company of his, an insurance company of his, that we froze. And so it's easily, it's possible for me even now, all right, to take steps, to recover in a civil action using the EOCO, Act, okay, to recover the 24 million, that was taken from Exim Bank, right? So for me, it is left to their lawyers to decide the path that they want, to tread. If they want to defend the action and then get to trial and then be pronounced guilty or not guilty, it's left to them. If they also want to short-circuit the process by plea bargaining, it is left to them. I would not advise them. I would not be the one to proffer that advice. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Quick update on the National Cathedral. We heard Dr. Ayine yesterday speak about or express his revulsion at the whole state of affairs of the National Cathedral. What is the state of the forensic audit that His Excellency the President asked you to do?
Thank you very much. So the forensic audit, as you rightly pointed out, was at the direction or command of His Excellency the President, after he met with myself and the Auditor General, and I think the Finance Minister. Subsequently, we had a meeting at the Ministry of Finance where it was decided that we should speedily get a private audit firm to do the forensic audit. Now, I cannot procure, usually if I'm procuring services, it will be legal services, all right? There's no precedent of an Attorney General procuring non-legal services. And because this is audit and will be supervised by the Auditor General, it was the Auditor General who was given the task by the Minister of Finance to proceed to procure the services of an audit firm to conduct the forensic audit. And Pricewaterhouse was, chosen to do this work by the Auditor General. The last time I checked, they had actually written to my office, this was last week, they had written to my office that they are coming, they want a meeting with me to understand to understand some of the issues that are that are germane to the forensic audit that they are conducting. Now, that doesn't mean that they've done significant work and they are, getting to the end of their work, but they want some of the stakeholders, such as myself, all right, to have a conversation with them regarding the work that they are doing. So very soon, I want to assure Ghanaians that very soon we will have the report of the forensic audit conducted by PwC, and that will let us know whether or not any wrongdoing had taken place.
Last one or one and a half.
You've mentioned public officers being surcharged, but I'm also looking at the Auditor General's report. We keep hearing a lot of financial misapplication. What happens to those reports or afterwards? And then regarding the plea bargain, you also spoke about people have approached for plea bargain. We keep hearing it that consistently. We are going for Christmas. How much so far would you say you have been able to garner? Maybe we can use some for Xmas. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So the Auditor General report, as you rightly pointed out, is usually replete with acts of malfeasance by public officers. And then most of the time, they appear before Parliament. They are queried on those acts of malfeasance or audit findings. And then some of them are able to come up with evidence that they either did not, they either did not commit the malpractice alleged, okay, or that they have since remedied the situation. All right. Now, that is within the remit of the Auditor General. The power to surcharge and to disallow and surcharge is a power granted under Article 187 of the Constitution to the Auditor General. So he alone can disallow and surcharge. All right. I come in, or my office comes in, at the point where we have to take action to recover. We have to take legal action to recover. And that is where we can come in and take the action based upon the disallowance and surcharge notices to recover from the persons who have been surcharged. Yes, and then talking about recovery, offers have been made, as I've said. In some cases, in the National Service case, for instance, one person offered to pay 22 million Ghana cedis, okay, out of, I think, 30-something, about 38 million, and I rejected the offer. All right. So, yes, offers, keep being made, but sometimes the offers are made conditional on people just bringing the money and walking away, and I say no. So that is where we are. That is why we haven't recovered. But we will certainly recover, and we will recover a lot of money. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Attorney General, for that concise briefing and your crisp responses. So we will draw down the curtains on today's edition, and in fact, this year's edition, unless something of biblical proportions happens before the end of the year. So to all of you who have been part of the success of this program throughout the year, I extend sincere thanks to you. I hope to see you next year. Merry Christmas to all of you.
Thank you.